In the spring of 1933, the town of Millbrook, Ohio, existed the way many American towns did during the Great Depression, quiet, careful, and slightly afraid of the future. Millbrook had one main street, two churches, a brick schoolhouse built in 1898, and a railway spur that no longer carried passengers, only memories and occasional freight. People knew each other's names, their habits, and their silences, and everyone knew Jack Carter, the shy boy who almost never spoke. Jack was 9 years old that year. He was thin, pale, and usually smelled faintly of old books and wood smoke. His father, Thomas Carter, had been a machinist until the factory closed in 1931. After that, Thomas took any work he could find, repairing radios, sharpening tools, fixing clocks that no longer kept time properly. Jack's mother, Eleanor, had once been a school teacher before marriage, but now she mended clothes and read newspapers aloud to neighbors who had lost their eyesight or their hope. Jack did not complain. He did not ask for much. He listened. He listened to the radio when Franklin D. Roosevelt spoke about fear itself. He listened to his mother recite passages from old history books about the founding of the nation. He listened to the wind move through the cornfields at night and to the strange ticking sounds that sometimes came from the attic of their aging house. No one knew that Jack was also listening to something else. It began with numbers. At first, Jack thought everyone heard them, quiet sequences whispering at the edges of thought. Not voices exactly, more like patterns, rhythms, ratios. When he stared at the cracked ceiling above his bed, the cracks arranged themselves into shapes that made sense, like maps. When he watched the town clock, he could feel when it was about to stop before it did. When he touched metal, he sensed where it had been forged, how it had cooled, and where it would break. Jack never told anyone. Shy children learn early that silence is safer than misunderstanding. The Carter's house stood near the edge of town, not far from the abandoned railway line. That railway mattered more than anyone realized. Built in 1871, it had once carried soldiers during the Civil War's final years, then coal, then factory goods, then nothing at all. Rusted rails do not forget their history. Jack could feel it humming beneath his feet when he walked near it, as if the past itself were vibrating. One afternoon, while collecting scrap wood along the tracks, Jack found something strange half buried in the dirt. It was a small brass object, warm to the touch despite the cool April air. It looked like a compass, but the needle spun freely, refusing north. Etched around its edge were symbols Jack had never seen, yet somehow understood. The moment his fingers closed around it, the numbers became louder. Jack dropped the object in surprise. The ground trembled, not violently, but enough to rattle the stones along the tracks. A flock of birds rose into the air as one. The compass-like object rolled to a stop, its needle pointing directly at Jack. Terrified, he wrapped it in his jacket and ran home. That night, Millbrook experienced its first unexplained event. The town clock, broken for nearly a year, began working again at precisely 8:17 p.m. Every watch in town synchronized itself within seconds. People would later swear they felt something pass through the air, like a sudden pressure change, though the weather remained calm. Jack lay awake in bed, the brass object hidden beneath a loose floorboard. He could feel it pulsing, like a second heart. Over the following weeks, strange things continued to happen. Crops planted too early survived a late frost. A bridge inspectors had deemed unsafe held firm during a flood. A child fell from a hayloft and landed without injury, as if the ground had softened beneath him. And always Jack was nearby.
Millbrook's schoolhouse was a red brick building with tall windows and creaking floors. Jack sat in the back, head down, hands folded. His teacher, Miss Abigail Turner, had been teaching since before the Great War. She believed in discipline, history, and the power of observation. She noticed Jack. He never volunteered answers, yet when called upon, he was always correct. Not just correct, but precise. When asked about dates, he gave exact times. When asked about historical events, he mentioned minor details that were not in the textbook, but later proved accurate when Miss Turner checked the library archives. One day, she asked him how he knew so much. Jack shrugged. He said softly, "It fits." "What fits?" she pressed. "Everything," Jack replied. Miss Turner felt a chill she could not explain. The brass object, Jack had begun to think of it as the instrument, revealed more of itself over time. When Jack placed it near broken machines, they behaved differently. A dead radio crackled to life. A jammed typewriter freed its keys. The instrument did not fix things directly. Instead, it showed Jack where reality was slightly misaligned, where a gentle correction could change outcomes. Jack began to experiment cautiously. He learned that concentration mattered. Emotion mattered even more. Fear caused distortions. Calm created clarity. The instrument responded to history. Late one night, while reading an old newspaper from 1918 about the influenza pandemic, Jack felt the instrument grow warm. Images filled his mind, not visions of the future, but deep impressions of the past. He understood then that what he had was not mere magic in the fairy tale sense. It was something older, tied to patterns of human choice and consequence. Unknown to Jack, others had searched for such things before. In Washington, D.C., a small office within the Library of Congress had been quietly cataloging unexplained historical anomalies since the late 1800s, events where probability bent, where survival rates defied statistics, where technology advanced too smoothly to be coincidence. A report crossed one man's desk in May of 1933. Millbrook, Ohio, multiple statistical deviations noted. Dr. Harold Whitman adjusted his glasses and frowned. He had seen patterns like this before, once in New Mexico, once in rural France during the war. They rarely ended well. He boarded a train the next morning. Meanwhile, Jack's powers grew, not stronger, but clearer. He learned that he could not force outcomes, only influence them within narrow margins. He could not stop a storm, but he could shift its path slightly. He could not cure illness, but he could improve odds. The cost was exhaustion. After each use, Jack slept deeply, dreaming of clocks, rails, and branching roads. The town began to notice. Some called it luck, others whispered about miracles, a few muttered darker things. When a banker's ledger mysteriously corrected itself to reveal long-hidden embezzlement, suspicion entered the conversation. When a planned factory reopening failed due to unforeseen mechanical issues that Jack had quietly influenced, knowing it would collapse later and kill workers, anger followed. Jack did not understand why doing the right thing felt so wrong. His parents noticed the changes too. Eleanor saw the shadows under his eyes. Thomas heard the faint humming in the house at night. One evening, after supper, Thomas placed a broken pocket watch on the table. "You fixed Mr. Harlan's clock," he said gently. "Can you look at this?" Jack touched the watch. The instrument pulsed with response from beneath the floorboard. "I can, but it won't change what happened." Thomas nodded slowly. "I thought so." That was the first time Jack realized his father knew more than he said. Thomas Carter had fought in the Great War as an engineer. He had seen machines fail and men survive when they should not have. He had learned to respect forces that could not be named. Whatever you're doing, make sure you're doing it for people, not for outcomes. Jack remembered those words for the rest of his life. Dr. Whitman arrived in Millbrook under the pretense of writing a regional history. He asked questions, he observed, he noticed Jack. The first time they spoke, Jack felt the instrument go cold. "You're very quiet," Whitman said, sitting beside him near the railway line. "I listen," Jack replied. Whitman smiled thinly. "So do I." That night, Jack dreamed of doors closing. Whitman knew what Jack was, or at least he knew enough to be afraid. The instrument, Whitman believed, was a resonant artifact, one of several rumored objects designed not to control reality, but to align it. Artifacts like it had supposedly been created